Hello, my name is Hope Welty, and I would like to thank you for joining us in Del Campo High School's Coug Media Studio as we take the time to speak with the candidates for the San Juan Unified School District's Board of Education. Each of our videos will start up with a 2-minute introduction by the candidate. Then I will ask the candidate a series of questions that our parents, staff, students, and community members submitted, and our student staff helped select. Each candidate is asked the same questions, so if you'd like to hear another candidate's response, you'll be able to in their video. Candidates have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question to make sure that we can get all the questions in and that all the candidates have equal opportunity to respond. Our district office friend, Elizabeth Zeladon, will help keep track of time and let us know if we approach the 2-minute mark. After questions, the candidate will have up to a 2-minute closing statement, so be sure to watch all the way through to the end. Now let me introduce to you Oleg Shishko, who is running to represent Trustee Area 7. Hello, candidate Shishko. Please begin with your opening statement.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for taking the opportunity to get to know me a little better and why I decided to do this. I'm a resident of Citrus Heights for coming up on 6 years pretty soon. My wife and I moved to this area, got married here, and we're raising our family here. I have 2 young boys. My oldest is 3.5, and in a few years he's going to be of school age. It's as a parent, I am a little worried about his future and the values that I believe that we're trying to raise him in, and I want to make sure that as a parent that I'm in control of his education. So that's really why I'm running for school board. I want to make sure that parents have maximal control of the education of their children. So whether that be me or for my kids, you for your children, for your grandchildren, that you guys have can control the education of your kids, because those kids are yours, not mine, not anyone else's, not the government's. They're your children. So you should have maximal control over their whole educational process. And that's why I'm running for school board.
Question 1. San Juan Unified stopped providing home-to-school transportation more than a decade ago. What can be done to help make sure that students can get to and from school safely?
One more time, can you repeat that? Yeah, sorry.
San Juan Unified stopped providing home-to-school transportation more than a decade ago. What can be done to help make sure that students can get to and from school safely?
So just to clarify, San Juan, you said stopped providing to and from transportation? That is a good question. I'm not going to make up stuff on the spot. I'm not familiar with how transportation works. What are our policies? What are the funds that are available for that? That's definitely something needs to be looked into. Regarding transportation, if that's, I'm not sure what that specifically refers to. Is that like, hey, each child individually gets dropped off at each home, or is that just funding bus, school buses, things like that? That's something I guess I'd have to look into a little further. So I wouldn't have much exact information on that. So I'm not sure how to exactly answer that in full detail so you can understand what I believe. So yeah, that's my answer.
Many families were impacted by the change to start times this school year, whether it be by lack of supervision in the morning before school or a time crunch after school trying to fit in activities. What supports did you see the district implement to help families adjust, and what else do you think could be done?
Yeah, this is one of the big, I think, concerns with just the last few years with the lockdowns that we've had because of COVID. Also, another factor of why I'm deciding to run for school board is not quite satisfied with the way all of this was handled. Frankly, I believe that even though we get a lot of regulations from the top, from the federal government, from the state government, frankly, I believe if parents don't approve of whatever the bureaucrats are pushing on us as parents, on our children, if we don't approve of that, we need to find ways to make sure parents are in charge, not the folks up top telling us what to do, how to run our schools. So I guess to answer your question there, I don't approve of, I'm not a fan of all the lockdowns, the school closures that happened, and I want to make sure that kids are able to come to classrooms, not be forced to mask up. So to answer your question regarding school times, they should be brought back to normal. We shouldn't have to, have our kids just be home for a long time. Yeah.
Most districts in California, including San Juan Unified, are facing declining student enrollment at their schools. Why do you think this is, and what ideas do you have to combat declining enrollment?
Yeah, definitely declining enrollment is a big thing. I think part of it overall, just a longer trend, is that I think overall families are just having fewer kids. So there's just overall there's people aren't having as many kids, and how do you solve that? I think that's something outside of my control or anybody else's control. Just overall the trends of our culture, unfortunately. But overall, in regards to like, hey, if there are a lot of kids in our area and they're choosing to go elsewhere, I think we need to somehow look for ways to bring choice to parents. So myself as a parent, if I have a lot of choices to send I'm obviously going to be trying to look for the best for my kids. So if we kind of allow choice for parents and vouchers, things like that, to have parents send their kids exactly where they want, and that will force schools to compete with one another, to fight for those kids so that they come to this school versus the other one. So I think that whole dynamic that creates competition between schools would cause each school to look for ways to bring in more kids to their school.
What can San Juan Unified do to provide classes that have meaning to students and learning that can be used in the real world?
That is a good question. One thing that I know when I finished school, I honestly feel like I was not prepared for the real world. I learned while in school little to nothing about investing, and that's like a big thing for anybody who's out there, about taxes. That's definitely huge. Just overall, I finished school not knowing, hey, what do I do? So it took me a while to figure out, kind of find my place in the world. So what do we do to prepare students out there? We definitely need more programs, what are actual jobs out there, and try to help kids experience, one part of an industry. Or like, for example, this right here, this is really impressive. Have more programs that actually give kids some kind of skills or give a taste for a certain industry. If I was able to, get a taste for certain areas of work, I would have found myself much sooner. So things like this, fund, more areas, find actual programs with skills. This is what kids need. And real world stuff, finances are big. I'm not sure. I remember when I was in school, we had an economics course, but personal finances was not really taught. Just these real world everyday skills that need to be brought to the classroom. How to be out of debt, credit cards, and just the basic stuff need to be taught, because I felt like they weren't when I was there.
What role does the Board of Education play in making sure that we have the highest quality teachers and staff to serve students and families?
Yeah, what role does the board play in that? The board sets policies. The board hires, the superintendent oversees the superintendent and the work that's done by the board. We can't do everything, but we can definitely place certain policies that make our schools competitive. And I think one way to, hey, how do we find great teachers? How do we find and retain those teachers? I think if we can focus more, like refocus ourselves on academics. Just overall nationally, what I've seen, or at least the feeling that I've had, what I don't fully like overall in the schools, and what's been going on is that there's sometimes, it feels like certain political agendas are coming through when through the classrooms, and somehow we need to get rid of any kind of politics, I guess, in the schools, and just like, hey, let's focus on academics, as our culture is very diverse, and it's hard to just make sure everybody agrees on each, values. So let's not do that. Leave the cultural battles outside of the classroom and focus on academics. That way, teachers can do what they're good at. Because teaching is hard. I definitely understand that. Have them focus on, the academics, on teaching those skills, but the issues of values, ethics, things like that, leave that, I think, to the families, to the individuals.
With more than $1 billion in community-supported bond funds, San Juan has been able to do a lot to improve and rebuild facilities. Do you support more bonds in the future, and how would you prioritize which schools the funds are spent at?
Regarding finances and bonds, I'm a little on the fence there, and I would say that I lean towards not supporting that if it brings us more into debt. So to summarize just my worldview on, the way I try to run my household is I try to stay out of debt. We don't have any debt at the moment. If we plan to buy a house, we'll get in debt for that thing. So in general, I know that from what I've heard, our district is doing very well financially, and anything we can do to stay out of more debt, so that we don't have to burden taxpayers further and not burden future generations that are going to come after us. We need to look at doing that, try to see if we can spend the money that we have and not overspend. Because overall, nationally, that's a huge problem in our country, and I want to make sure do my part so that that's not a problem in my area locally. So I'll do what I can to see that we are fiscally sound. And if it, would make sense to, like, let's say for myself, I can't afford to buy a house. So obviously, I'm going to take a loan for that. So, in a similar way, if that makes sense for the school, definitely. But if the overall trajectory is getting more and more into debt, and just spending more than whatever comes in, I definitely don't approve of that.
What would you like to specifically see done to improve safety on school campuses?
Safety is very important. I know everybody values safety. It's very important to everyone. So any kind of ideas, we have for increasing safety, I would embrace those. I would definitely explore that. For sure, we need to continue partnerships with local law enforcement. For those in Citrus Heights, with the City of Citrus Heights Police Department, for the other areas in our district, whatever law enforcement agencies there, we definitely need to continue our partnerships there. I think that's what's in our control as a school board, is to make sure that we have a good relationship there, that we have adequate funds given to security, that we take care of that. More than that, I think, unfortunately, there's not much the school board can control. Unfortunately, I don't agree with the idea of gun-free zones. I don't think that's something the school boards can control, because that's state or even federal, perhaps. So if anything we can do to bring more trained people who can defend our kids, I would definitely support that, whether that be trained teachers or parents who are vetted and trained. Those things, again, they're outside of something that we control. Largely what the school board can do is probably make sure, double down and review safety policies in schools, make sure drills are done, and outside people come in and look at, hey, in a case of an emergency, are we good? Have we practiced? Do we know what to do? So all of those basic things I think we should embrace and review again and again and make sure we look for vulnerabilities when we can.
What is the single most impactful thing you can do as a board member to make sure that the district and its schools remain financially sound and have balanced budgets?
That is one big financial fiscal responsibility. Just financial stability is one of the big reasons of why I'm running. In the area of Citrus Heights, I was trying to make sure that our city was staying out of debt, and I fought hard against Measure M. I joined a group to fight against tax increases in my area. So, and trying to make sure that our city is managed well and not gets overpaid, gets into debt, things like that. That was a big concern in my area where I'm at. So same idea, I would bring the same philosophy, same worldview to the school board if elected. I want to make sure that we're not overspending, that we're spending within our means. We can't be on a, like, hey, from next quarter we really need to save money, so we need to find ways to save. That should be always our outlook. Hey, where's the waste? Do we have any waste? How do we make sure we save for the future so that we don't need to borrow from our future? Because if we borrow from our future, it'll be hard to invest once we're there. So overall, that's my philosophy, that's my way of thinking. We need to spend within our means.
Like many of the adults in our community, some students are struggling with mental health and resiliency. What is the school district's role in supporting student mental health, and what would you do as a board member to make sure it happens?
Yeah, one thing that I heard that really affected mental health in students over these last few years in a negative way was the lockdowns. That really affected a lot of students from what I hear, and that's something that we need to make sure doesn't happen again. If the choice is ever up to the school board, I would see to it that kids would stay in the classroom. They're not segregated based on whether or not they want to wear a mask, and those seemingly nonsense rules that were given to us from the top. I don't quite favor those. So anything that helps kids kind of stay together. Another thing is we need to make sure that there's a good partnership between parents and teachers. Sometimes parents can see something and they need outside help, like from the teacher. Sometimes teachers can see something and they can't fix the issue. They need to tell parents. So anything that empowers that relationship between teachers and parents is something that I would like to implement, particularly getting just overall more so that parents have more say in how their kids are taught, what they're taught. That's important overall. If we kind of bring in that dynamic of more looking for ways to bring parents, to involve parents much more, because parents are the most interested parties in the well-being of their children. If we can bring them in even more, I think that would help turn around that dynamic.
Do unions have too much power in California schools?
Good question. Good question. I think they do. To be honest, I think unions do have a lot of power. And one of the reasons why I'm running is I feel like parents don't have enough say. And it's, while I don't, teachers have a lot of interest in the way schools are run, obviously. And those are valid interests, and I'm not against that per se. I just think that there needs to be more balance. The voice of teachers need to be heard, the voice of parents need to be heard more. And there's interests on both sides, and the interests that are, I think, more important are the interests of parents. Why? It's because when my kids go to school bottom line is they're my kids. They're not your kids. They're not the teachers' kids. They're not the unions or the governments or anybody's. They're my kids. And your kids, they're not my kids. I don't get to, tell anybody how to raise their kids. I'd be happy to talk to people, but all I can do is persuade. So in the same way, I think parents need to have a bigger voice. So what can the school board do about that? We just need to, teachers have a right to raise their voice, and they're exercising that right, which is good, but we need to elevate the voice of parents so that they're not, their interests are kind of brought to the forefront.
As students, we see acts of hate speech and bias on our campus. As a board member, what would you do to address these concerns?
Yeah, hate speech is, I think everybody would condemn hate speech on any side. Anybody you ask, obviously, anything where, a certain person is denigrated for who they are, what they believe is definitely something that we should condemn and allow people to believe what they believe, live the lifestyle that they want to believe. I think that's something that I, as a school board member, if elected, I would definitely support that. Another aspect that I want to bring to where I come from is I'm afraid that my culture, my values are going to be subverted, or what I'm saying is there are some values in our culture that are perhaps, you could say that they're incompatible, and I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, and I ask the same thing in return. So bottom line, what I'm trying to get to is the classroom needs to be a place of diversity and inclusion, in the sense that worldviews from all sides need to be allowed to speak, and sometimes calling certain people, hey, you're a hater just because I disagree with you, I think that's not right. We need to understand that people come from different backgrounds, but anything like racism, things like that, obviously they're easily condemned. I think we'll all agree, but overall we need more diversity and include worldviews on the right, left, center, from all the way, so everybody feels comfortable.
How have you seen the district listen to the voice of students, and what other ideas do you have for how student voice can be expanded?
Can you repeat that question one more time?
How have you seen the district listen to the voice of students, and what other ideas do you have for how student voice can be expanded?
Yeah, good question. I have seen, I think I did, I was pretty impressed with what the district was doing. I tuned into the latest school board meeting. I was pretty impressed that representatives from different schools were coming up and speaking to the council, giving reports on what was happening, and somebody from a certain school said, hey, we need this and that in our stadium. That was impressive. I was impressed by that. I think we should continue that dynamic of just hearing from students from different groups on campus, what they're looking for. We should continue that trend, and I liked what I saw on that school board.
Thank you, candidate Shishko. Do you have a closing statement you would like to share?
I'd like to, yes. And my name is Oleg Shishko. Once again, I'm running for school board in the San Juan area, San Juan Unified School District, Area 7. My area really covers a big chunk of Citrus Heights. If you're in that area, I would be honored to have your vote. Why am I running for school board? I'm a young father of two. Down the road, maybe we'll have even more kids, and I'm really worried about their future. And I want to make sure that I, as a parent, have the control over their education. I want to know and be able to affect what they're taught. I want to make sure that the values that I'm teaching them in the home are not subverted, or that they're not pushed out or discriminated against just because they have certain values that we try to teach in our home. As a parent, I want to make sure I'm supported in that regard. I understand there are people from different worldviews, I think that school should be a neutral place for everybody to come and learn academical things, but the issues of values, what our culture battles over, that should be outside of the classroom. Get politics out of the classroom. That's bottom line what I believe. I want to make sure our schools are fiscally sound. We need to spend within our means. We need to continue doing that. I think our school board has done well with that, based on what I heard. We need to bring more power to the schools, more power to the parents, so that parents have more control over the education of their kids. I would be honored to have your vote. You can check out my website, voteoleg.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to go and watch every candidate's video, and please go out and vote.